Now, one of the adjustments, according to the Minister of Finance, is that there could be increase in luxury taxes, trying to see how they can tax those who have private jets in the country. And there have been directives given to the customs service to ensure that they increase the amount of revenue that they rake in. Now, looking at all of this developer economy, what do you think that we did not do right during the year? Because we've looked at areas where we think we've made some efforts to stabilize the economy. What are the areas that we didn't, we just let down our guards?
No, but I think that doesn't serve any purpose. First and foremost, it's like, hindsight is 20/20 vision. I can, to mark your exam paper, I can tell you that you did this wrong, and all that. What's important today is, what should we do in 2015 in view of what we know to insulate ourselves from the shocks and this journey towards diversification? You talked about luxury taxes and all that. How much tax compliance in Nigeria is almost zero. So how much are you going to get? But it's symbolic. In Venezuela, in Venezuela, an oil-producing country with the highest proven reserves in the world, inflation is running at 63%. Their currency is a shambles. The president and everybody in the National Assembly have taken almost a 50% cut in salary in Venezuela. So, if you are going for symbolism, it has to be dramatic so that people feel it, right? But the reality is that accepting that this price drop is not short term, because everybody in Nigeria is talking about, oh, it will soon be back. It's not going to be back soon. Let's get used to this new normal, right? Let's get used to the fact that everybody will be affected, from the in the villa to the man in the bus. Everybody will be affected. Government, investors, consumers, everybody has to take a cut, right? This is not a sectional problem. This is a national problem. I didn't start of people in government today. This has been a 2020 issue that has come. The chickens have come home to roost. So how do we deal with it, right? How do we adjust? How do we protect ourselves so that in future it will happen? Because we had this in 2008 and 2009, but our position was stronger. Our resistance was much. But today our we have more or less reduced resistance. And then we have to deal with it. And now it's turbulence. Turbulence is like aviation turbulence. We are flying into rough weather. And so everybody has to be prepared for this.
Okay, before we look in details into what we should do for 2015, let's still take a step back and still assess 2014. We have the NPR raised in the final quarter of the year to 13%, and for over a year, the figure was at 12%. A lot of people had called for the reduction in the NPR for a long time to increase lending to small businesses and business owners in general, and ensure that there is credit to those who, businesses in the country in general. But do you think that holding on to the NPR for 12% for that long was the right decision? And what impact did it make on our economy?
No, I think, first and foremost, the central bank policies in the past couple of years in terms of trying to use high interest rates to shore up the currency and the value of the naira, it was a bit defective. The best thing to do normally is to allow the currency to find its value, and then you manage and intervene in it. Now, once you've done that, the last meeting, they did that, but at the same time, increase interest rates. Once you devalue, you must allow interest rates go down so that productivity can increase. I think what was done was a combination of the two. We didn't devalue to the full extent, but at the same time, we used this. So it's a situation of this is a temporary situation. I think that after the elections and things are stable and there's no political pressure, we would face the reality, in which case we'll have interest rates come down to their level. Because inflation is at 7.9%, and it will go up. It will definitely go up sometime, but I think the tightening policy will be loosened up so that the monetary conditions of the country is different from the monetary policy. The monetary policy tightens when the monetary conditions are loose. If monetary conditions are tight, and then you tighten, then you create some kind of friction in the process. So I think that is where things are going to change.
And the lending rate, because when the central bank tightens, like you said, to 13%, the banks through which the money flows also need to tighten their interest rate. So we've seen businesses complaining, business owners saying that lending rate is still very high and was very high for 2014.
Well,
Would there have been another option for the banks, because they depend on what the central bank gives them, and that give them a kind of direction to the kind of rates they give?
yes, there's some
the
merit
economy.
in your argument, but one of the things that you must know is that this misconception that businesses are funded only by loans. Banks provide working capital. Businesses are funded by the shareholders' equity. So a lot of people substitute equity with lending. But when you borrow money, you have to pay interest. But if you look at the average borrowing, total borrowings as a percentage of equity in the country, it's significantly high. So yes, if you want to jumpstart the economy and kickstart it, then you need to bring interest rates down. And obviously, if you are in the real estate, if you're in the real sector, it's impossible to money at 22, 23% and because you will have to price it in. But there are many objectives here. One objective is stabilizing the currency. The other objective is making sure that the economy is not overheated. And the third objective is that the amount of money that goes into the system every month from the government, right? When you put the FAC in, it creates liquidity. That liquidity now pursues the dollars, and then it reduces the amount and actually puts pressure on the naira. So the central bank is playing a balancing act. It's trying to catch a falling knife. It can't do that. So eventually, once the political issues are resolved, then you will now isolate what you call the framework which we use is called inflation targeting. And inflation targeting is an anchor. The anchor can either be the interest rate or the exchange rate. The anchor can have a dual anchor. So what you will see happening is that from March, you'll find that the focus is using the interest rates to stimulate economic activity and allow the exchange rate to on a managed floating basis, and you intervene in an interbank basis. It's possible that because markets go from allocation to auctions, from auctions to interbank, and interbank to full convertibility, the Nigerian currency, like many other currencies in the world, will head towards full convertibility. The Russian ruble has lost over 70% of its value this year. Right?
Or last year, right?
In 2014. So that's an oil-producing country. Angola has made some moves. So there are 35 of us who are oil producers. There are 196 countries that consume oil. So every oil producer has to make his own adjustment because income is being transferred from oil producers to oil consumers. Petrol price in the US is $2 a gallon. It hasn't been this low in the last 5-10 years. So everybody's having a boom out there.
Okay, we're going to go on a break very shortly, but before that, talk about the cashless policy of the central bank. What's your assessment?
Big mistake that they didn't push it. The cashless policy is good and should be pursued so that we can have an efficient payment and settlement system. An efficient payment and settlement system increases the velocity of circulation, increases transactions, reduces the demand for credit, and makes the economy much more efficient. Kenya has shown an example. Everywhere in the world now, people are doing transactions by their POS terminals, by their cards, and all of that. We got the momentum, but somehow it slowed down. I'm hoping.
Why did it slow down?
I just don't understand it, because the benefits were clear to me from a macroeconomic perspective that we need to pursue that aggressively, so that the time of carrying cash and counting cash and all of that should be over. We shouldn't allow it to slow down at all.
And the auto policy, we're seeing tariffs adjusted, now locally manufactured cars to be purchased by Nigerians. What's your view about this policy and the impact that it made?
No, that policy means nothing. 70 million cars were registered in the US. The total number of cars in 1 year, and the total number of cars that were registered in this country, officially through the official market, maybe 250,000 cars. It will take a long time for cars, first of all, even to be assembled, not to talk of being manufactured here. But meanwhile, you've slapped the tariff at 70%. It has pushed up the price of cars, and it is actually strangulating people. But well, like I said, but again, this morning I heard they've moved the tariff on Tokumbo cars to April, from January 1 to April. We are not going to be competitive as auto manufacturers for some time to come. But anyway, the efforts are commendable. We're going to say, but it's not going to do it. You're not going to achieve anything from that.